Okay, so this is the follow-up video to our past webinar. We had recording issues with our last webinar, so I'm going to have to redo that and then send it to everybody again this week. So just when I switch to computers, the one I traditionally work with. So what we talked about the last webinar was the right wrist. We also talked about arm action and how that affects the right wrist, and it could be your left wrist if you're left-handed, so it's going to be your backhand. What I've got on my wrist here, as you'll see, is a hinge pin. It's basically a hinge, horizontal hinge, and you can see when I bend it, let me just get it here set, and you can see when I bend, that's the plane. Now the float, that's too much, where you too much bend, and then this is a roll, and this is what they call an under roll, where you roll the pin out that way. So if you see somebody do that, all these moves, if you're right here and you see this, so they take this out, they bend that down, that closes the face when they roll that hinge this way. If they roll that hinge open, you can see that rolls the face open as well. That's what a lot of players do, better players. They'll get it here and they'll kind of roll it open a little bit. The best is what I like is this just bends. You can see as I turn back, this is just naturally bends, and you can see how natural that is. It's going to, from here, when I go this way and I without moving my arms at all, if I just bend it, that's what they're doing. Now if I was cocking, this is the reason why wrist cocking I'm so against, because if you were standing here like this and you were going to hit a chip shot, you wouldn't. Nobody in the world would ever cock their wrist like this, up and down. But what makes it look okay is when you take it back and you turn. If you twist and then you cock your wrist, people go, "Oh, well that's okay." But the club gets kind of really steep, and you can see there's no stopping the length of the swing. It just kind of cocks. There's no support. So what I like is when we go back like this, as we go back, there's no bending. But all of a sudden, you can bend in this area, and then that gives a little support, shortens the swing a little bit, tightens it up, makes it more efficient to strike this way. Now, going back to that is, when I go here, if I said, all right, you can bend your wrist, you don't have to have an arm swing this way on the table. You can bend, this makes sense. I'm just bending this wrist, so it's on plane. This hinge is on plane with my wrist. If it was up here, it would bend this way. If it was like this, it would bend this way. But it's not rolling, and it's not going this way, and it's certainly not cocking. That makes no sense. You can see it would never do this. See, if I did that with this pin on there, you can see if I cocked it, this would start to press up against that. It would get really unstable in the left hand, overswings. So when you see a player that's trying to hit a 20-yard shot, what'll happen is they'll video their swing. They're trying to hit a 20-yard shot. Their swing will look that much length. It's all wrist cock. Whereas if you side bend as you swing away, it would look more like a really high level player, which we talked about on the webinar, would look like this. So the amount that the club is cocked up is very little. But when you side bend it correctly on the plane, like this, you can see that's what it would look like. So you side bend it that much, and as you turn up, the club gets far enough back. So it looked like this. 20 yards would be like that. 25. But most people when they video, you'll see you cock your wrist. That's from doing this, cocking it just like this, which nobody would ever do if that's how they had to hit the ball. But when they turn and cock, it doesn't look near as bad. That's why the wrist, they just side bend like this, so it just side bends this way. And then when you swing your arms away and you turn, then it looks normal. That's just a normal side bend. This is right on the wrist and then back down. So there's a lot of questions about that. Now what happens if you roll the arm? So if I'm going back and I take my lead arm and I'll roll it, so if I took my lead arm and roll, that's this way, okay? This is an under roll, that way as well. So if I just take my left arm and roll it like this, then if I bend it, well yeah, the club's gonna be, this thing even falls out off the band right there, because it's so far off. Let me see if I can figure this out. I had it. So if you went under roll, like the left arm this way, and there's some players that'll do this, and chipping, you're dead if you do that. But if you go here, you'll have to kind of work it back to that side bend. Now this is naturally exactly, this right wrist bend is exactly where it should be. But if that right wrist, if you were to under roll it like this and swing it back and down, this right wrist is not bent. It's flattening. You're dead. So if you roll the left arm open, okay. So all these things, that's why we talk about swinging along the table as you build that first zone here. That first 10 yards is just like this. There's really nothing. Then after that, you might have a little bit of side bend. This now is, when I get to here, off that table, it side bends just a little bit. Face on, that looks like that. Most people we see when they look at their videos would look like this for a 15, 20 yard shot. they're really vertically cocking the wrist. That's going to flick it, or you'll cock the wrist and you'll hang on and you'll get way out of line through your timing contact point. Those are the primaries that you want to do, that you want to focus on. You want to focus on if you side bend the right wrist correctly. If you stayed on the table and side bend this on the plane that you start, so right here, if it starts and it side bends, that's what your swing would look like. So if I went back a little bit, it would go just like that. If I cock my wrist, if I'm turning and cocking, it would be more like this. And if you twist on the way down, you would have that club sticking out. You hit the big slice. If you roll the arms, back and then try to side bend or nothing, you'll be kind of like this. So it'd be either way under and under the plane, or would way right open and you would twist like this. That's why we believe in building that 10-yard scale where you turn back, you're hitting shots just like this at first. Then you go back a little further. That's where the side bend hits right there. So that keeps the wrist cock out. So you can see the shaft angle is not up in the air. It's not cocked vertically. There's just very little. And then if I swing back further, my arm swing just goes back. Even there, when you see that, I'm not cocking my wrist this way. I'm just turning and letting the arms go upward. So I'm going here, turning side bend, and then arms work upward up the right shoulder. And that does that. That's what makes the club look like it's, if I'm going longer swing this way. But I don't want that club cocking back to me like this. I don't want it uncocked to look like that. Nobody really does that. But so many people cock the club too early, and they can't keep up with it. So there were several questions, but really the main one that I felt like was one to talk about was there's so many players that talk about bending this right wrist. So you'll bend this right wrist, and then you hang on to it like this, and this is what it looks like. So this hinge pin is out, and it's open. So that if I did that, I'm really hanging on superficially, hitting shots, and you're just going to be all over the place. Your timing will be off and late, and you won't really do very well. This hinge, when you can see when I bend it this way, and then I start to come back, as I'm pushing that right arm away, this is just flat now. This is back in line with my grip, and you can see it's just flat. I'm not bending it the other way, so if I bend it this way, so if I swung down and I bent it too early this way, that would be no good. So if I was here and I keep the hinge, you can see this hinge is right on plane here. I haven't lost any of that, but the angle is, if you look, I'm gradually losing the angle of the club, which is fine. That's exactly what I want, because I've got plenty of lag right in here, and as it's starting to flatten out, not pass, but flatten out, that's where the arms work together and go through. So what most people will do, the question was on the right wrist bend, they want to hold this like this. Well, then your timing contact point's really late. It'll be a late flip. Typically, players that do that, they'll drive the handle off plane this way, instead of, if you watch where we're teaching it, it goes right back down and through and back up again. So, very simple. This is the easiest way. It's just a horizontal hinge, and when I have it on plane like this, that just bends back just like that, right on the right wrist. If I roll that hinge, it's no good. If I roll it this way, it's no good. If I roll it over, so it just bends. So if I'm using my right side properly and I'm training the 10-yard scale properly, you should really do well. If you study your swing and you see that it's way too long, which it probably will be, you're probably trying to hit 30-yard shots like this. If you try to hit 30-yard shots and you see your swing's too long, then you need to look at getting away from side bend or cocking the wrist and go more to side bending and less wrist cocking. Let this airplane go by. So when I'm here, I just want this, starting to lose it here. And this is the best way I can describe. It's what I've been talking about and on my videos. It's literally just I have it backwards. That's the problem. It's a horizontal hinge is what I've been talking about, and that's what it does. So, not the easiest thing to put on here, but I think everybody's got the point at this point in the session with what I'm really trying to do. This is on plane. You can see this little plate right here, and when I'm set up, it's like this, and it just bends. It doesn't roll, it doesn't underroll, it just bends. So when I turn, I'm turning back in my swing, it just bends on that, and that would look exactly like this, which is going to be pretty stock with most of your great players. Now you can recover, so if somebody rolls it, cocks it, or like this right here, you got to bend it back. So that's my point. It's got to be bent, okay? And then it flattens out, like we know, it goes through the time and contact point. But you can see if I do all that stuff here, I can recover, but I've got to recover. If I just turn back and work on the scale on the table and just bend it like this, let the arms go rise up and then go back down, everything will be very neutral, and it'll be a very easy way to progress your swing. And you won't be out of too many gray areas and having to really adjust in your swing. Although you can have it all over and players show, but this ends up being there eventually. So it's a very easy way to build your swing up through the 10-yard scale just by training. 10 yards there really won't be any. It says this, 15 you may be like that. There's that little side bend right there. 20, little side bend that the arms kind of start going up that right shoulder, that right lifeline goes up the shoulder, and there you go. And it might be a driver where somebody goes way past parallel, but that's still side bend here. So if somebody sees that the length of swing is off, I guarantee you it's too much wrist cocking in their setting instead of being wide and then using the side bend in a gradual progression. And they're probably not training enough in the 10-yard scale, going 10, 20, 30 as they work up. All right, good luck with that.